Wout van Aert, for me, is the big favorite to win the stage. His team will probably try to set a certain pace on that last climb to put other sprinters in problems. So I'm going to pick Wout van Aert at plus 150. Is my favorite to win tomorrow's stage.
Hi, I'm Spencer Martin, along with Johan Bruyneel, and this is Outcomes.
Outcomes is not an online gambling operator or a gambling site of any kind. We are simply here to provide information about sports betting for entertainment purposes only. It is a responsibility of all visitors to this podcast to check current local laws in their area or country before doing any gambling online. It is your responsibility to know and follow your local laws in place. Although we try best to provide accurate information on Outcomes, we cannot be held responsible for any inaccurate or incorrect information which is mentioned on this show. If you place any bets based on the conversations on Outcomes, you confirm or understand that it is possible to lose some or all monies used when betting on sports or doing any gambling. You cannot hold Outcomes responsible for any such losses. Our podcast is here to provide entertainment and should be viewed as that and nothing more. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Outcomes. We are predicting stage 7 of the Vuelta a España. But before we get into the weeds with Johan Bruyneel on how that's going to play out, I wanted to touch base on a few things that played out today on stage 6. Johan, I don't think we saw this coming. We didn't quite see Ben O'Connor winning the stage with a shocking 4:33 gap over the next closest rider, Marco Frigo, who was in the breakaway, and then 6.5 minute gap to the peloton with former race leader Primož Roglič in it and pretty much every other GC contender. Ben O'Connor now has a 4-minute, 51-second lead on Primož Roglič, base 4:59 on Joao Almeida. I mean, that's significant for a guy that just finished 4th at the Giro d'Italia and has finished 4th at the Tour de France in his career. What happened here? What was Red Bull thinking? They didn't really pull. They had a rider in the breakaway. Seems like a bit of a risk.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a big risk. Ben O'Connor, I think they got everything right in terms of calculating the breakaway, the strength of the breakaway, and then bringing them back at the end, except that Ben O'Connor was on a completely different level than everybody else in the breakaway. He kept gaining time. I mean, first of all, he destroyed the breakaway, and then he kept gaining time. All the others came back. All the others came back to more or less a minute ahead of the bunch, or what was left of the bunch. But I find it quite strange to see that there's no real understanding between the teams. When one team's pulling, the other team's not pulling. I mean, it's quite easy and comfortable to make an agreement and say, okay, hey, look, we don't know where this is going to end, but let's at least make sure that we don't lose the race. And the 3 teams with ambitions for the podium work together. We often see one team, then the other team doesn't want to help, and then when that one team stops, the other team comes. Makes no sense. So, I'm probably old school. Back in the days, we made agreements with team directors, and we kept our chances intact. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. But I think it's a big gamble what the peloton and the teams of the favorites did today. As you said, Spencer, a guy like Ben O'Connor, maybe they thought that he didn't show up in great shape. Maybe they know that he was not in great shape. But listen, a 3-week tour, man, you can never underestimate a guy of that quality. He can ride himself back into shape, especially when there's something like this on the line. Once you have that leader's jersey, in these 5 minutes, they have to go and get them back somewhere. And as you said, 2 times 4th in the Grand Tour. As recent as this year's Giro, I mean, he was just there for the podium. I think it was between him and Geraint Thomas, very close for 3rd place. So they have their work cut out. And also, if we look at the big favorites for this race, we see, going off what we saw in the first uphill finish, Roglic and Enric Mas mainly, and Almeida and maybe Van Eetveld. We're not going to call him a favorite but podium candidates. It's not like these guys are used to take massive gains on other riders. And Ben O'Connor is one of those guys. So big mistake, in my opinion, what happened today. I hope they will not regret it in Madrid.
They seemed unbothered by it, but I just feel like it's making your life really hard. I mean, when the gap, it was a minute, Red Bull's at the front, I thought, it was the PlayStation tactics I laid out yesterday. Like, Florian Lipowitz goes in the move and he wins the stage, and now you have a second option to play. It felt like they were trying to do that, and that's why they let the gap go. Mm-hmm. put some pressure on other teams, but the flaw in that is now you're entrusting a 23-year-old, pretty unproven, pretty inexperienced rider to not get dropped by Ben O'Connor, who's finished in the top 5 of 2 Grand Tours. And you say like O'Connor might ride his way into shape. He's in shape because he was flying today. And that's where the logic starts to fall apart for Red Bull. It's like, okay, maybe you can take time on him, but if he got the time today, that means he's in shape, and that means he will be hard to drop later. The guy can lose like 45 seconds per summit finish, per uphill finish, remaining uphill finishes, and still have like a minute 20 going into the time trial in the final stage. So it's not going to be easy. And actually the big losers are podium. Like if you're Movistar, and they were like, Movistar was sending riders up, Bahrain was sending riders up. The problem is when no one pulling is as strong as the guy at the front, the gap's going to go out. Yeah. And as you say, they weren't working together.
And I think Ben O'Connor today, he outrode everybody. He was way stronger than the rest of the breakaway. If he would have been on the same level of his breakaway companions, nothing would be okay. I don't think anybody was taking into account that Ben O'Connor was going to put in that kind of performance, because it was amazing how he rode at the end. It didn't slow down, and when anybody else was pulling with fresh legs, he kept that time, or he even kept gaining time. So, reason to be concerned for the podium candidates.
Do you remember what happened stage 6 of last year's Vuelta?
Well, Sepp Kuss got in a break, no?
It's got in a break, got away. And he was, to put this into perspective, Jonas Vingegaard, who finished second eventually, was like 243, 245 behind him in GC by the end of that day. So this is a bigger gap, much bigger gap than Sepp Kuss had last year. Yeah. And people hand waved it. They're like, oh no, that's going to come back. I kind of did. I didn't really believe it, but it was enough. I mean, I'm curious to see how this plays out. And we'll talk about Ben O'Connor's chances of holding on to that at the end of this episode. But Johan, I'll read the odds for tomorrow's stage 7. It's hilly to flat, and then a tough little climb, 7K long climb, 5.6% average, tops out about 25K before the finish line. So it's a sprint stage with a little bit of uncertainty. Wout van Aert's the favorite at plus 150, Caden Groves plus 300, Pavel Bittner plus 1200, Corbin Strong plus 1200, Jonathan Narvaez plus 1600, Victor Campenaerts plus 2200, Stefan Kuhn plus 2200, Casper Askren plus 2800. It starts to get silly down here, so we'll just call them out when we need to. But how do you think this is going to play out, and who do you think is going to win?
Yeah, I think a sprint stage tomorrow. With that climb at the end, especially, I see a great opportunity for Wout van Aert. Again, we're always thinking about the Wout van Aert we know from last year and the years before, right? The question is this the Wout van Aert in his current shape? But normally, a climb like tomorrow, 8.5 kilometers, between 5 and 6% average, although they call it the Alto little 14%. There's apparently one part where there's 14%, but average between 5 and 6%. That should not be a problem for Van Aert. Could be a problem for some other sprinters. So that's to be seen. So I would expect Wout van Aert, for me, is the big favorite to win the stage. His team will probably try to set a certain pace on that last climb to put other sprinters in problems. So I'm going to pick Wout van Aert at plus 150 is my favorite to win tomorrow's stage.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate that at all. And he's actually plus 175 on both FanDuel and DraftKings in the US. And that starts to get a lot more intriguing. I mean, my only gripe would be the price. Wout van Aert seems to have an unbelievable ability to lose races. I don't fully understand it. Like, he's going to be great tomorrow. He's going to get over this climb. You'd think he's going to win the sprint, but I think that a lot, and then he doesn't. So just because I'm often wrong, I'm going to zag and go Caden Groves plus 300. Much better price than Wout van Aert. But the question is, can he make it over this climb? It's so easy, and it's not actually easy, but easy for these guys leading into the climb. And there's a sprint point at the bottom that's going to get contested. It's going to be really, really hard to control this climb. It's going to be fast. Everyone's going to be attacking because they know if they can get a gap, maybe they can win the stage. Wiesma will also be trying to put Caden Groves under pressure. I think Caden Groves will get dropped, but a group, if a group catches on, he'll be in it, and he has a good chance of winning if he does.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's a match. He's a match for Van Aert until now. So I think his climbing ability is a little less than Wout, so that's his advantage. But there's no reason. I mean, he if it's not super, super, super fast, he can keep it within distance, and hopefully he has a few teammates with him. That could be an issue if he has teammates. If his team is strong enough to have some guys with him that could bring him back. But if he's getting dropped, he's not the only one who's going to get dropped, and not the only one who wants to make it back. So that could be to his advantage. So I like Caden Groves as your choice.
Yeah, the concern would be even if so the teammates, let's say they help him get back on, they probably won't be able to help him lead or sprint. There's no lead out. You'd think that favors Van Aert, but as we've seen, Van Aert almost. He does better when there is a fast lead out. So I don't know. Maybe Caden Groves could win with no lead out because it's like a high torque, low speed sprint. But if it's not those two guys, I think we've identified there's like a circle of four top guys who like have the top speed to win these stages. Do you think there's one more of them? Is there one of them you like to win a stage?
He hasn't shown it yet, but he's going to be up there at some point. Corbin Strong is a cyclist who can deal with these kind of difficulties at the end. He can get over it, and is fast enough. For until now, we haven't seen him close to Caden Groves and Wout van Aert. But we said the same thing about Pavel Bittner until 2 days ago, until yesterday. Sorry, and so I'm going to go for Corbin Strong as my second choice, plus 1,200. I think that's a really good price, and do not always pick the same guys. Corbin Strong is my second pick.
Well, if you go back to stage 2, he was closing on Van Aert pretty fast, ended up third. Just bad timing. So plus 1,200, I definitely think that's worth it. Just because we were burned, Pavel Bittner plus 1,200. I'm not leaving him out. I think, if you look at that sprint yesterday, he was just fast. He won. Good analysis. He won because he was really fast, but he's one of the only guys with the speed to compete with Van Aert and Groves and potentially Strong. Plus 1,200. Does he get dropped? Maybe. Can he get back on? Maybe. But you don't have to be certain at plus 1,200. You've got a lot of room to wiggle there. If Wout van Aert loses his stage, Pavel Bittner is one of the few riders that can actually beat him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those four are the guys, Spencer. Other than that, we go to guys who are fast, but in my opinion, don't have the necessary speed to beat both Van Aert and Caden Groves. So I think that we need to stick to those four riders. Yeah,
I agree. So head to heads, there's some silly ones today. I'm gonna pick out the more interesting ones. These are on FanDuel. Some of them are on DraftKings. But Leonard Van Etfeldt, minus 270. Matthias Skelmoza, plus 188.
Van Etfeldt.
Do you think he sprints?
I think he's going to fight for position. Skelmoza has lost some time already, right? So, I'm gonna go for Van Etfeldt.
Yes, you're right. Skelmoza is out of the GC. Wait, no, not quite. Not yet. But Van Etfeldt's higher up.
How much did he lose? He lost, let's see. Oh, no, he's in 8th. Okay.
It's actually better than I thought.
Yeah.
Wait,
okay. Yeah, okay. He's probably also going to fight for position then. But I still think Van Etfeldt. I think he's a bit faster.
He's like he's fighting for position, but he's like recklessly far up. I don't know if I would totally recommend that. Joao Almeida, minus 142. Antonio Tiberi, plus 106.
Mm-hmm. Antonio Tiberi.
Yeah. There was a rider caught out early in the stage today. It was Joao Almeida, probably because he was in poor position. It was before TV was covering the race, but he's not.
But Thibaudy was also caught out, I think.
He was caught out. Yeah, you're right. It's a good point.
Yeah.
Do you still like him for just the odds there, I would say Thibaudy.
Yeah, Thibaudy, yeah.
And then Wout van Aert, minus 164, Caden Groves, plus 120.
Huh, yeah. Oh.
And this actually hit for you yesterday because you bet Van Aert to win the head-to-head, and then he didn't win the stage, but he beat Caden Groves.
Yeah, since he's my pick to win, I'm going to pick him again. Wout van Aert beats Caden Groves. Yeah.
And when we look at these overall odds, like I believe the favorite to win the race is Primož Roglič at plus 115. Ben O'Connor plus 175 to win. What do you think about that?
He was strong today, man.
Like really strong.
Yeah. You know what the thing is with Ben O'Connor? I didn't research that. My son actually discovered that Ben O'Connor in his whole career has only won one GC, and it was in 2016 in Australia, an under 23 race. He's never won a GC.
Well, now I don't feel as good about it, but he doesn't have to race traditionally. It's like the 2021 Tour, I believe, where he got all that time in the breakaway.
Yeah.
And then he just had to hold on. It is a little bit different because I could see why he'd struggle to win GC, because it's like what we talked about with Sepp Kuss. Loses a little bit of time in the time trials, loses a little bit of time on the summit finishes.
Listen, I don't dislike it. 175. It's, let's not forget, as we said, when he was fourth in the Tour, if I remember correctly, it was Pogacar and Vingegaard and Carapaz in front of him. Roglic and Almeida and Van Eetveld and Hendrik Mas are not of the same level, they're not like taking huge amounts of time back. Roglic, if he's good, he can do it. But, the question is he going to be really at his highest level? We don't know. So at plus 175, I don't dislike this.
I watched the stage today, and maybe I overreacted. I thought it's over.
No,
it's over.
Yeah. Your text was okay. O'Connor's winning the Vuelta. Yeah,
well,
okay.
But if you, we just think in our mind's eye. Let's just imagine Roglic pretty good, not the best he ever was, but pretty good. It would really take an O'Connor collapse for him to lose this, because Roglic is not going to take enough time. As you said, it's just really a question is, does Ben O'Connor completely collapse or not?
Yeah.
And maybe he does, but 175, not bad for a rider with proven GC pedigree.
He did not collapse in the Giro at any point.
No. And that wasn't that long. It's not like we're talking about a result that was a decade ago.
Yeah.
And actually, he lost time at the Giro because he was trying to follow moves. And now he doesn't even need to do that. I don't know if maybe he will and he'll blow himself up, but he really can ride his own race. He doesn't have to pay attention to other people at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how it plays out. I do like that price. I thought it'd be a little bit lower, but 175 for him to win the overall.
Because if you look, Ben O'Connor, he lost only 2 minutes to Martinez, who was second in the Giro, and he lost 1.5 minutes overall to Geraint Thomas. So overall,
over 3 weeks of racing too, and this is only 2 weeks of racing that he has left. Yeah, and he does this well. Because tomorrow's a sprint stage, and then you have mountain stages on the weekend. But you'd think a healthy and fit O'Connor will not really be pressed that hard on those stages, and then he has a rest day.
Yeah, I think if he starts to ride smart and rides his own tempo, which is pretty high, it's a good cushion, man. It's a really good cushion. The question is, will he have the team? His team seems pretty strong. He has Felix Gall, he has Clément Berthet. There's a few guys who are pretty strong. He has Valentin Paré-Peintre.
He has Lafay, who's not bad.
But I don't think that will be a factor. So yeah,
what's the thinking there, Johan? I mean, we heard about this a lot during the Tour de France Femmes. It's like, oh, she's leaving the team, Demi Vollering, so we shouldn't work for her. Like the result still goes to the sponsors. Like I've never fully understood that logic of like someone's leaving, therefore we shouldn't support them. Unfortunately, we've lost Johan to technical difficulties, but we were done anyway. We will be back tomorrow to preview Stage 8. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye.